On today's video, we're going to be looking at immigration arrest, ICE detentions in the Sarasota area. Sarasota continues to arrest people who are illegally living in the United States and placing them on immigration holds. Salvadorians, Cubans, Hondurans, Brazilians are being arrested just in the last few days. Most of them are seeing immigration holds for deportation orders. Some of them have simple offenses like driving without a valid driver's license, while others have committed some serious crimes. Builders and developers, the biggest crooks in Florida, were busy as the state's economy was exploding. But now that the state's economy has crumbled, we're starting to see a resurgence of the crime syndicates that plagued Florida back in the 2000s. We're talking about the Cuban crime syndicates and other individuals that when things are good are busy swindling in the real estate world and development. But now that has come to a stop in Florida, the homies are busy hitting the big licks. Some of them are people like Cuban nationals who are U.S. citizens that are not deportable, while others are new arrivals who are not here legally and are straight up breaking the law on a large scale. You guys may remember in 2022, this Honduran man was operating heavy equipment on 275 in Pinellas County, just north of us, and he ran over a police officer. He then ran away from the scene. The police officer died, and he was finally sentenced to 12 years in the state of Florida, and after that, he will be deported back to Honduras. In front of the court, he mentioned that he had been a heavy equipment operator for 15 years, and when the accident happened, he didn't know what to do. He's not legally in the United States, and he killed a police officer with heavy equipment in an accident. Now, accidents do happen. People do make mistakes, and 12 years for manslaughter of a police officer doesn't seem out of the norm, especially considering that he left the scene of the accident. Jeremiah Bailey, now he killed people on purpose with his vehicle. On the same Interstate 275, he went on an onslaught of using his vehicle to hurt people, hurting police officers and pedestrians at random. A group of Hispanic police officers from Tampa Police Department decided to end his situation right on the highway. But it's interesting how many news agencies made a huge deal about the Hispanic that hurt somebody on accident, but it's not out of the question when an American citizen on purpose goes after random people and police officers. Now, the latter incident happened just a few months ago, and there's no suspect to speak of anymore thanks to the good work of the police officers who ended this situation on the interstate. But I find it interesting how some news stories focus so much on when Hispanics are arrested for doing something, and they'll make a huge national story out of that. But when an American does something even more sinister on purpose, that isn't just a newsworthy story for them, since it really doesn't match their narrative of portraying Hispanics as evil people who hurt U.S. citizens like they like to do here in the state of Florida. So let's take a look at some of these arrests, individuals who are being arrested in Sarasota with an ICE and immigration hold. Last month, we saw a good roundup of people. Overwhelmingly, most of them broke the law. In other words, they were criminals who were here illegally and they broke the law. Now, law enforcement agencies in the state of Florida promised the Hispanic community that they would only go after individuals who were criminals, and those who were working and not hurting anybody would not be bothered. But that doesn't really match up with the arrest records. We're seeing a lot of people who don't have criminal charges getting that ICE and deportation hold. Take a look at this guava pastry out of Miami. Cuban citizen, not a U.S. citizen. He was in Sarasota where he was arrested for defrauding and swindling up to $20,000. Not every Cuban gets that deportation hold, unfortunately, so El Amigo will be here for a while, apparently. But just think about the notion that this guy hasn't become a U.S. citizen yet, and he's already plotting to steal nearly $20,000 in a scheme to defraud. He's over here in Sarasota committing crimes. He has an address out of Miami. Guys like him wouldn't hurt if they got the deportation hold. I mean, how the crap are you going to be here? You're not even a citizen yet, and you're already plotting to swindle people out of their money. Meet the homie Orlando Ernesto. He is a U.S. citizen born in California. He was arrested for defecating on the streets of Sarasota. He is, by occupation, a dog trainer, so he can teach, I guess he can train your dog to go, but he couldn't train himself to go. He was also charged with contempt of court, so I don't know what the crap he did in the courtroom. But this individual decided to urinate or defecate on the streets of Sarasota. He's a dog trainer. He can teach your dog not to do it, but he can't teach himself to do it. Now, the address that he has listed is an address that could be a very fancy high-rise downtown apartment or a homeless camp. I don't know which one of the two it is because there's a fancy high-rise apartment that also has a homeless camp underneath it. So he could either be living in a nice condo downtown or right outside of it. Hard to tell. The charge looks like a homeless charge to me. I mean, defecating on the streets, that's definitely a homeless charge. We're going to assume that the homie decided to defecate on the streets of Sarasota and he was arrested for it. Interestingly, individuals like him are U.S.-born citizens, not deportable, unfortunately. Talking about defecation in public, this particular business in downtown Sarasota has a problem. You can see there's like a little doorway there. Seems like there's always homeless people defecating in front of that particular business because it's kind of a little entryway and, well, many people have to come and clean it up often. Good thing it's tile. Easy to clean. The 72-year-old woman recently turned herself in for a hit and run that caused the death of 2 people in the Sarasota area. If I'm not mistaken, it was a mother and an infant, something along those lines. While going to prison or jail isn't fun, I think her conscience will feel better now that she's turned herself in. Her charges are definitely serious. 2 charges of leaving the scene of a crash causing death. That isn't a fun place to be. Accidents do happen, and many people, when they find themselves in this situation, decide to flee. This 21-year-old man from Lehigh Acres, Florida, found himself up here in the Sarasota area. He was stealing cargo up to $50,000. You're stealing $50,000 worth of cargo. Come on. Of course there's an ICE hold. He was arrested just 2 days ago here in the Sarasota area. His listed address is a duplex in the notorious Triangle neighborhood of Lehigh Acres. Meet Andres Felipe from Cuba, 28 years old. He has an ICE and immigration hold for driving without a valid driver's license. Interestingly, he lists his occupation. Are you guys ready for this? He's a contractor. Yeah. He doesn't have a valid driver's license, but somehow he lists his occupation as a contractor. Interesting. You know, to be a contractor in the state of Florida, you at bare minimum need to have at least a driver's license. The address in Davenport, Florida, which is outside of Orlando, that he gave to law enforcement, doesn't seem to exist on Google Maps, so maybe that's not really a real address. But at the end of the day, apparently this guy lives in the Orlando area and found himself contracting himself into an immigration hold in the Sarasota area. Now, to be exact, he was arrested in Venice, Florida for driving without a valid driver's license, and now he's got that immigration hold on him. Meet Francisco da Silva, Brasileiro. He was arrested for his first conviction of no valid driver's license, and it will likely be his last because he also got himself picked up for an ICE immigration hold. Now, the property that he is listed as living in is in North Sarasota. It's a property near the Sarasota airport off of 44th and Brazil Nut. It's a property that seems to have a lot of things going on. A few campers, fences, many vehicles, and a kebab truck. We're probably going to start to see a lot of Brazilians get the deportation order. Keep in mind that in the Sarasota area, also have a lot of Europeans that are doing the same exact thing. There's a lot of Russian women that'll marry an older American guy. Many times they'll pay crazy amounts of money for a U.S. citizen to marry a Russian. and they're doing that so they can enter the United States illegally. Clearly, they're not in the same ballpark when it comes to the dating scene. They're doing it to defraud the U.S. immigration system, and many times they pay large sums of money to do that. Meet Josefa from Hialeah, Florida. Now, she is born in Cuba, but she is a U.S. citizen, so she is not deportable. Just like many other Cubans from Hialeah, she has a passion for scamming and swindling people, up to $20,000 in her case. Now, she lives in a lavish, beautiful home in Hialeah. You can see the home has a large pool, beautiful pavers, beautiful terracotta roof tiles, a gorgeous palm tree in the driveway, and it's a gated community, so we can't see it from the outside. Interestingly enough, we're able to get the inside view of the neighbor's house for some reason. I'm not sure why you would put the inside of your house on Google Maps, but I guess that's an option if you've ever considered it. My point being, she's living in a beautiful luxury community with a pool, and she's being arrested for scamming. I wish law enforcement would look deeper into these people and find out exactly how they're living this lavishly if they have the tendency to find themselves in Sarasota getting arrested for swindling people. Seems like a common theme here. We might have to pull her arrest and see exactly what was happening through body cam footage. But it's not uncommon for people from Miami to come over here, swindle the crap out of people in Sarasota, to live a lavish lifestyle in Miami, financed by all the frauding and scheming that they do here in Sarasota. Judging by her age and the fact that she lives in Hialeah, she probably doesn't even speak English. Doesn't seem like she has an occupation either. This is the clear case of somebody who is scheming their way into millions of dollars at the cost of everybody else in society, and because she's a U.S. citizen, she's not deportable. You know, I feel like when it comes to scamming and fraud, if you get arrested for scamming and fraud, this is the type of crime where you should have everything you own looked at. You're not going to be scamming and frauding people and live in a mansion with a boat out back, a pool, and beautiful palm trees. If you're scamming and you're living lavishly, this should go for lawyers as well. They just recently arrested a lawyer here in Sarasota for stealing over $100,000. When they catch lawyers and scammers and people who are living lavishly by screwing other people over, they should really look closely at their possessions, their material assets, and determine, okay, here's a lawyer that's been screwing people out of money. Should he be living in a mansion? Probably something we should confiscate. This woman here, she was born in Cuba. She is a U.S. citizen. We can't deport her. Here she is in Sarasota scamming people. Why is she living in this lavish mansion in Hialeah? I want to hop back to the Brazilian real quick. If you guys remember at that property, there was food trucks, there was vehicle wrapping equipment, there's all types of legitimate businesses that they were trying to start. Maybe he overstayed a student visa, I'm not sure. It seems like he was trying to do things legitimately, but at some point, things just didn't work out. This is a 23-year-old Salvadorian who lives in the heart of Sarasota. He was arrested for no valid driver's license. Now, at this moment, there isn't an immigration hold on him. Chances are he will, within the next few days, obtain an ICE immigration hold. What's interesting is that many of the arrests that we're seeing here in the Sarasota area are people that don't even live here. They're coming here to commit crimes. I feel like what's possibly happening is that many individuals are leaving the country. They know they're going to get deported or they're going to voluntarily leave soon. They figure since they're not happy about the fact they're having to leave, they want to do a little bit of damage before they go home. Maybe go back to their country voluntarily with some heavy equipment they stole. Who knows exactly what these individuals are thinking, but definitely the types of crime and the severity of these crimes show that people are traveling to the Sarasota area specifically to commit large financial crimes. You may have heard recently criminals from Tampa going to Port Charlotte, criminals from Miami going to Sarasota and Port Charlotte. It seems like a trend right now to come to these areas to commit some pretty serious crimes. Perhaps they're just trying to get even with law enforcement or with the community for the fact that they know they're going to be getting deported soon. Whatever the reason, these types of large crimes are definitely on the uptick. Also, we know that the economy in Florida is crushed and a lot of people are heavily indebted and not able to afford their lifestyles that they dug themselves into. So now they're finding themselves practically forced to commit crimes to keep up with a lifestyle that is just not reasonable. The economy in Florida is suffering, and we saw back with the last recession how many people went directly to crime when they couldn't afford to legitimately earn the type of living they're used to. So more than just immigration related, it could just be a sign of the economical times we're in right now, where people are desperate for large sums of money. Now, many times people get into massive debts to be smuggled into the United States. So imagine somebody who got $50,000 in debt to be smuggled into the United States, and now that they're here, they're finding that they may get deported or that they may have to voluntarily return. If you owe somebody in Honduras or Salvador $50,000 and you don't pay it, you better figure out a way to pay it. A lot of people in these countries, I don't know how they're able to come up with these sums of money. I've heard Dominicans are paying $20,000 to get smuggled over here. Cubans, it's $10,000 a head, but it usually comes out to about 15 because they get taken somewhere in Mexico, and then you got to cough up another 5,000. So these individuals are coming to the United States and getting $10, $15, $20, $30, $50,000 indebted to people that have absolutely no problem making that debt go away instantly. I recently talked to an individual from the Dominican Republic who paid $23,000 to get smuggled into the United States. If you think about it, this guy was actually in a better position in the Dominican Republic than I am in the United States, because if you asked me right now to come up with $23,000, I couldn't do it. Unless you're Cuban or Haitian, you're going to spend at least $10,000 to get smuggled into the United States per person. Then they come over here and many times find that as an illegal, they're actually better off in their home country with a legitimate occupation, because what they're paying in rent, cost of living versus what they're making here undocumented doesn't add up. When these individuals see an impending immigration crisis and they have to return back to these countries where they owe people a lot of money, they may end up in a situation where they have to do whatever it takes to come up with that money, because they know that back home, if they don't pay those debts, they're not going to be around very long. That puts these people in a lot of pressure to commit very serious crimes, because they know that the amount of money that they owe, they can't make back in their home country, but they owe it. This is the real situation that many people from other countries have right now. They borrowed huge sums of money to get smuggled over here, thinking that they're going to make all this crazy money in the United States, and now they're finding out that that's not even realistically possible.